Okay, so we are going to go over chapter 5 review. And on Wednesday, or the next class this week, we'll do 6.1 and 6.2. We're moving right along. Again, I know that some of these assignments are not due yet, but you want to try to stay where we're at in class. The reason that those assignments are due a little bit later is just to give you a little bit of extra time in case you have an issue. So you want to try to kind of be where we're at in class. So if you're not, you should try to catch up. Okay, so first problem we're supposed to solve, and then it says don't forget to check our work. And the problem says that we have Q plus 6 over Q is equal to -7. Well, the first thing I know is I can't solve this and have a Q on the bottom. They're asking me, the end result is we need to figure out, well, what is Q equal to? So to get rid of this Q on the bottom, you can always multiply by a common denominator. And since we only have one denominator, which is Q, we could take this whole thing and multiply every single thing by Q to get rid of it. If we do that, we're going to have Q times Q, which is Q squared. When we do Q times, let me just write this out so that you can see it, but if we do Q times 6Q, what's going to end up happening is the Q on the top is going to cancel out with the Q on the bottom, and then we have an equal sign, and then we would do Q times -7, so that would be -7Q. Okay. Now, so what we would end up having is Q squared. Those Q's canceled out, so you just have plus 6 equals -7Q. You should be recognizing that this is quadratic because it has a Q squared in it, and to solve these, you need them equal to 0. So we need to add 7Q to both sides of the equal sign so that we can get this whole thing equal to 0. So that's going to be Q squared plus 7Q plus 6 is equal to 0. Okay, there's two ways we can go about solving this. We can solve it by hand, which means we would be looking for numbers that multiply to 6 and add to 7. Okay, and those would be 6 and 1. So we would write down Q plus 6, Q plus 1 equals 0, and then we would solve. So we would say, well, when is Q plus 6 equal to 0, and when is Q plus 1 equal to 0? When Q is -6, and when Q is -1. That would be the two answers, -6 and -1. So when we plug -6 back in for Q, it should work. When we plug -1 back in for Q up here at the top, it should work. So these are the two answers. Now, if you're using your graphing calculator, you could stop right here and type this in the calculator and let the calculator do the work for you. So we've got Q squared plus 7Q plus 6. I'm going to go to my graphing calculator just to remind you how to do that. So here's our graphing calculator. My screen's over here, so I'm going to get out of it. I'm going to hit second mode to kind of get out of this screen. And this was in your apps. So I'm going to hit apps button. And we do want number 9, Poly Simulator. So I'm going to hit number 9. There's the Poly Root Finder. That's the one I want to use. So enter. The order is going to be 2 because that's the highest power of exponent. Everything else should be good here. So to get next, you hit graph because it's right underneath the next on your screen. Then you want to type in the equation that we had when we were solving ours. The one I'm going back to is this Q squared plus 7Q plus 6. Now we don't have Q, we have X that we have to use. So we're going to say we just have a 1 here. So 1 x squared plus 7. And I know it was q's instead of x's, but that's the same thing, plus 6. Okay, and we would type that in the calculator, and then this solve right here will get us the result. And to get solve, if you'll look under the button that's right underneath the button, solve, it should say graph. So you want to hit this graph button, which will get it to solve. And those are the two answers we got, -6 and -6 and -1. So this is how you would do that on the graphing calculator if you would like to do that. Okay, you can do the other way, it doesn't matter. But okay, number 2, it wants us to find the least common multiple by factoring. Okay, the least common multiple. To find the least common multiple, you want to find the prime roots of 20 and the prime roots of 50. So 2 is prime. How many times does 2 go into 20? We'll go 10 times. Try 2 again. We'll go 5 times. And so that means that 20 is really 2 times 2 times 5. I want to find the prime roots of 50. I always try to use 2 if I can. So if 2 will go, I use it. If it won't go, I try 3. But 2 is prime, so 2 will go into 50 25 times. 2 will not go again. 3 won't go into 25, but 5 is prime, and 5 will go 5 times. So 50 is equal to 2 times 5 times 5. I'm getting those numbers right here. Okay, so to find the least common multiple, you want to list it the most amount of times it's listed in either group. So I'm comparing this group, 2 times 2 times 5, to 2 times 5 times 5. The most amount of times it's listed, a 2 is listed, it's listed twice over here and once over here. So the most amount of times it would be listed in either group would be 2. 2 is bigger than the one time it's listed over here. I've also got a 5 to worry about, and 5's listed once here and twice here. So 5 times 5. And if we do that, we've got 100. We multiply that out. That's going to be our least common multiple. 100. Okay, questions about any of that? Number 3 is going to be fairly easy. And the reason I know it's going to be easy is because we have a common denominator that is the same. They're both x plus y. So when we have that, we've got x plus y on the bottom, and on the top, we're taking 2x minus 3y, and we're adding 2x plus 10y. So on the bottom, we've got x plus y. On the top, we can combine the 2x with the other 2x. That's going to be 4x's. We can also combine the negative 3y with the positive 10y, and negative 3 plus 10 is going to be a positive 7y. Okay, and that's going to be the answer to that. There's nothing we can do to simplify. We're good. Okay, number 4. We want to simplify by removing factors of 1. So this is a fancy way for saying to simplify this, okay? So I would encourage you to use your calculator as much as possible. So right now I'm going to focus on just simplifying this 54 over 60. I'm going to not worry about the q's right now, but I'm going to focus on the 54 over 60. So if I go to my graphing, now you can find the biggest number that will divide out here. Okay, that will work too. But I just want to make sure you know that if we go to our graphing calculator, getting out of this screen, and I just type in alpha y equals to get my fraction to come up, enter, that was alpha y equals, get your fraction to come up, and our fraction was 54, sorry. $54, and use your arrow to get down to the bottom, over 60, and we hit enter. It reduces our fraction for us, which is really nice. It says it's 9/10, so that helps. So now I know that 54 over 60 is really 9/10. Now, let's deal with this q. I've got a q to the third and a q to the 12th. The bottom is bigger, so that means the bottom is going to win. Okay, so that means that the q's are going to end up being on the bottom when we cancel things out because there's more of them on the bottom. Well, 3 of these q's, so if we've got q to the third over q to the 12th, the bottom wins. 3 of these q's take away 3 of these. So this means on the bottom, I'm going to have q to the 9th. And on the top, I wouldn't have any because 3 of those took away 3 of these, and we subtracted 12 minus 3 to get 9. And this would be my final answer. So we have 9 over 10 q to the 9th. Questions about that? Okay, least common multiple. We've got to look at 98. I always want to deal with my numbers first. 98 and 49. Well, 49 is just 7 times 7. That's prime. Okay, so 49 is just 7 times 7. 98, 2 will go into 98 49 times. And we know 49 is 7 times 7. So 98 is equal to 2 times 7 times 7. If I want the least common multiple, we're just looking at the numbers. We've got a 2 listed here and no 2's listed over here. So we would have to list at least the 1, 2. You want to list it the most amount of times it's listed in either group. And if you're comparing 1 to none, 1 is the most. I've got 2 7s in both groups. So the most amount of times it's listed in either group is 2 of them. Now we want to look at the variables. Okay, I'm going to start with x. I've got an x squared compared to an x to the 6. Well, x to the 6 would win. It's bigger. I've got a y to the 6 compared with y to the 7th. Well, y to the 7th would win. So now we want to multiply this. 2 times 7 times 7. That's going to get me 98. X to the 6, y to the 7th. Okay. If I was doing this problem, I would use synthetic division because it's the easiest method instead of having to do the long drawn out way. And remember to do synthetic division. What you want to do is the opposite of the +9 in the box. So we would say, okay, the opposite of +9 would be -9. Then you want to make sure that your everything is in order. So in other words, we've got a c squared, then a c, and then a number. So it needs to be in order, and it is. So then you list your coefficients. We've got 1c squared, so we put 1. 14c, we put 14. 45, we put 45. Okay. Bring down the 1. 1 times -9 is -9. Then you add 14 plus -9 and get 5. 5 times -9 is -45. 45 plus -45 is 0. This last number is your remainder, which we don't have our remainder 0. We started with c squared, so that means in our answer, we're going to go down from c squared to c to the first power. Our coefficient is a 1. And then we've got this other number here, 5, so we would just put +5. And you don't have to put the 1, you could just put c plus 5. That would be correct. So we use synthetic division there to work that problem. Okay. this looks a little bit more complicated. They're asking us to divide this. The first thing that sinks in my head is let's go ahead and we know when we're dividing fractions, that means we're multiplying by the reciprocal. So I'm going to change my division to a multiplication, and then we're going to flip the second fraction. So it's going to end up being z squared minus 2. That's supposed to be a 2, not a z, sorry. And then we're flipping this, so 9z minus 72 would go to the bottom. Now we want to factor it to see if we can get anything to cancel out. So I'm looking at the top of this, z squared minus 64. That's the difference of squares. So that's just going to be z minus 8 times z plus 8. On the bottom, I'm looking for something that multiplies to positive 9, but adds to negative 6. Okay, so that's going to be negative 3 and negative 3, because negative 3 times negative 3 is 9, but negative 3 plus negative 3 is negative 6. So that would be z minus 3 times z minus 3. So I have factored this first fraction. Now I move into the second one. Okay, on the top here, we're looking for something that multiplies to be your negative 3 and adds to be negative 2. That's going to be negative 3 times a positive 1. Negative 3 times 1 is negative 3, but if you add them, negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. So we would use that to write our factored form, z minus 3 times z plus 1. On the bottom here, it looks like I can pull a 9 out of both of those. So if I take a 9 out, if I take a 9 out of 9z, I just have z. If I take a 9 out of negative 72, well, negative 72 divided by 9 would be a net minus 8. Okay, now keep in mind that anything that is the same on the top and the bottom will cancel out. So like I've got a z minus 8 and a z minus 8. That's on the top and the bottom. They're just alike. They'll cancel out. I've got a z minus 3 and a z minus 3. I could have used either one of those, but that will cancel out. And it looks like that is it for what's going to cancel out for me. So that means my final answer would be whatever is left. So we've got z plus 8 times z plus 1. And on the bottom, we've got 9 times z minus 3 that's left that hasn't been crossed out. That's going to be the final answer there. Questions about that? Okay. So I strongly encourage you that if you're struggling with the review and you have not watched the lessons for the videos, or if you've not done the all the homework, that's where you need to start, because this is going to be, we're kind of going, we're just reviewing for the test, so we've already been over all this stuff. You might want to go back and look at the chapters and make sure you've done the homework and all that before you let this stress you out, because then if you've got a question on it, then you'll be able to know, okay, am I really not understanding, or is it because I haven't already done the homework and the work? On this one right here, it says to solve this. So you want to cross multiply is probably what the best bet is. So you want to do 2 times y plus 4 is equal to 3 times y. So we're solving, the whole goal is to figure out, well, what is y equal to? That's what we're trying to figure out. So we can't solve for y if y is on the bottom of a fraction. We multiply, use a distributive property, and get 2y plus 8 equals 3y. We know we can't solve if we've got y's on both sides of the equal sign, so we need to get all our y's to one side. We could either subtract 3y or subtract 2y. It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to start having a little bit more room. We subtract 2y from both sides. That's going to leave us with 8 equals 1y. Well, there's the answer. There is a solution, and y is equal to 8. Okay. Multiply and simplify. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to see is there any way to factor anything out of this? So I've got a z to the 6, and on the bottom, I think I can pull a 9 out of both of those. I've taken 9 out of 9. I have nothing, right, or 1. And 63 divided by 9 is going to be a 7. And on the top, it looks like I could probably take a 4 out of both of these terms. That would leave me with z, and 28 divided by 4 would be a 7. And then on the bottom, I've got 4z to the 9th. Now remember, anything that is on the top can cancel out with things on the bottom. So I'm seeing this z plus 7 can go with this z plus 7. I'm seeing this 4 can go with this 4. I'm seeing that I've got z to the 6th and z to the 9th, which means the z to the 9th would win. The bottom wins because there's more of them on the bottom. But I get to take away 6 of those, so that would end up being z to the 3rd. So on the top, it looks like I have nothing. Everything's been marked out. I have to put a 1 there if everything gets marked out. And on the bottom, I'm left with 9 times z to the 3rd. Okay. On number 10, I'm not going to check what kind of method you use to divide. It does not matter to me. Synthetic division would be the easiest, I would think. Remember, we did one of these a while ago, and we were checking to see that we had a to the 3rd. It needs to be in descending power. So we would have an a to the 3rd. I'm just going to rewrite this. So we've got 1a to the 3rd minus 9a squared. And then we should have an a to the 1st, but there's not any of those here. So we would say plus 0a to the 1st. Then we could put our plus 4. Okay, so when we're dividing, you want to do the opposite. If this is a minus 4, then this needs to be a 4. It needs to be a positive 4 in this box. Then you put your coefficients, your 1a to the 3rd, negative 9a squared, your 0a, and then your 4. Bring your 1 down. You're going to do 1 times 4, get 4. Then you're adding negative 9 plus 4 is negative 5. Negative 5 times 4 is negative 20. 0 and negative 20, negative 20. Negative 20 times 4, negative 80. 4 and negative 80 is negative 76. This right here is your remainder. So if we started with an a to the 3rd, when we write our answer, we need to do 1 less than that. So if this is an a to the 3rd, then our answer is going to be 1a squared minus 5a minus 20 plus negative 76 is our remainder over whatever we were dividing by. So we were dividing by a minus 4. So this needs to be a minus 4. So on number 10, the right answer is going to be D. Okay. Number 11 is also a synthetic division problem. So we do the opposite of whatever is here. So if it's a minus 5, you want to put positive 5. I've got a v to the 3rd, a v squared, a v in a constant term. So this one is already in order. I don't have to put that 0 like I did the last one. So we would have 1, negative 8, 30, negative 19. Okay. You want to bring down the 1. 1 times 5 is 5. You add these. It's going to be negative 3 times 5. Add these. 30 and negative 15 is 15 times 5. And 15 times 5, yeah, 75. You add those, you're getting 56. This is your remainder. So if we started with a v to the third, this would be 1v squared minus 3v. We would take 1 off. Plus 15 with a remainder of 56. In the previous problem, they wrote plus 56 over v minus 5, was just another way to write this. So on this one, the right answer on number 11 is going to be C. Okay, so that's synthetic division. Least common multiple. And we're repeating ourselves, so we're working these multiple times. So we're going to focus on the numbers first. I see a 6. I see a 3. I see a 14. Well, 6 is just 2 times 3, right? 3 is just 3. It's already prime. 14 is 2 times 7. So if we're listing the least common multiple, we've got 1, 2 here, no 2s here, 1, 2 here. You list it the most amount of times it's in any group. So we would list 1, 2. 1, 3, 1, 3, no 3s. Well, the most amount of times it's listed is 1, 3. No 7s, no 7s, 1, 7. So we have to list the 1, 7 because that's the most amount of times. Okay, then you worry about your variables. You've got a b to the 7th, a b to the 3rd, and a b to the 5th. Which one's bigger, b to the 7th, b to the 3rd, or b to the 5th? B to the 7th is going to win, right? We've got a c to the 9th, c to the 7th, c to the 8th. Okay, the one that wins is c to the 9th. So 2 times 3 times 7, 42. B to the 7th, c to the 9th. That's going to be our answer. Questions about anything? Okay. So we know that we can't, if we're solving this for x, the goal is to figure out what x is. We can't have x on the bottom here. So we're going to have to multiply everything by x to get that x to cancel out and move to the top. So we're talking about every single thing is going to get multiplied by x. That's going to be 7 over x times x plus 5 over x times x equals 4 times x. These are going to cancel out. If you've got the same thing on the top and the bottom, well, that means we've got 7 plus 5 equals 4x. And 7 plus 5 is 12 equals 4x. Divide by 4. So x is equal to 3. So number 13 is x equals 3. There is a solution. They want us to simplify 4y minus 24 over 4y plus 24. I would start by noting that 4 is going to be able to be divided out of both of those. So if you take a 4 out of 4y, you're just going to have y. Negative 24 divided by 4 is negative 6. If you take a 4 out of 4y, you just have y. 24 divided by 4 is positive 6. So these 4's cancel out, and I would have y minus 6 over y plus 6. And that's the final answer. Because those are not the same, so they're not going to cancel out. I really think the smartest way to do this problem is to use your graphing calculator. The fastest way is to type this stuff in the graphing calculator. I'm going to switch over to my graphing calculator so I can show you. But it's possible. You might want to just figure out what the top is and then what the bottom is and then divide it instead of trying to type it all in at once. But if we go to our graphing calculator on this one, And I'm going to do alpha y equals, and we want to type in that fraction that they gave us. So I'm going to hit enter. So they want us to type in 3. Actually, I was going to type, let me back up, sorry. We're supposed to be typing in 3 plus 1/3, and that's what's on the top. It is possible to type this whole thing in at one time, but I'm just going to type in our 3 plus our 1/3, hit enter, and it tells us that's 10 over 3. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my problem. I'm going to say, oh, I found the top of that. I found out that this right here is 10 over 3. And I put that together. Now I'm going to type in my 2 minus 2/5. 2 minus 5. Okay, and that's giving me 8 over 5. Okay, and now I'm going to let the calculator do this work for me. I'm going to type in 10/3 divided by 8 over 5, and it's going to tell me the answer instead of me having to find all those common denominators like we did in the lesson. This is probably the best way to do it for the test. So 10/3 divided by 8/5. So I actually have a fraction inside of a fraction. So it was 10/3 divided by 8/5. So I'm going to hit I'm going to hit, alpha y equals again and hit enter. Because that'll put a fraction on top of my fraction. So it was 10/3. I go to the bottom, and then we had another fraction, alpha y equals, divided by 8 over 5. And it says it's 25 over 12. And that's exactly the answer they want. And I feel like that is going to be the best way, or I guess just to ensure that you're getting the right answer, 25 over 12. It's going to help you get the right answer the most often, okay? Now, I just closed out my graphing calculator and I did not mean to, so let me go back and open that because I know I'm going to need it in a minute. Okay. Now, and that's the answer they wanted, 25 over 12. So we're good with that. When it says multiply and simplify, we've had a problem that was similar to this already. You want to try to factor this thing before you simplify, because if you have anything that's the same on the top and the bottom, they're going to cancel out. So I'm noticing that this is the difference of squares because it has a minus sign, and the square root of 16 comes out to a perfect 4. When that happens, it can be y minus 4 times y plus 4. Difference of squares. Okay, on the bottom here, I've got 8y plus 56, which means I can factor out an 8. And 56 divided by 8 is 7, so y plus 7. Okay, and then on the top here, I've got y plus 7 over y minus 4. There's not anything I can do to those. This one turns out pretty easy because, right, we can cancel out our y plus 7s. We can cancel out our y minus 4s, and we are left with y plus 4 over 8. Those are the only things that are left. That's that one. Another thing that I would strongly encourage you to do is make sure you've got that worked out study guide with you while you're doing your test review and while you're doing your test, because it's just going to help you, especially this semester, if you're able to look at both of those. That's going to help you work the test. Okay, use synthetic division to solve. Here's what I'm noticing about this. The first thing is that it is really easy to notice that I've got y minus 2 right here. So that means that I'm going to have a positive 2 instead of a minus 2 in this first box. Now, I'm starting with a w to the 4th, but I also need a w to the 3rd, a w squared, a w, and then I could put my minus 16 that it has right here. Well, there's one of these, but there's not any of these. And you have to put those zeros there or you're not going to get the right answer. So we're going to do 1, 0, 0, 0 to hold those spots, and then we can put our minus 16. Bring down our 1. 1 times 2 is 2. Add those. 2 times 2 is 4. Add these. 4 times 2 is 8. Add those. 8 times 2 is 16. Add these. That means our last term, which is our remainder, is 0. We started with a w to the 4th. So that means this is going to be 1 less than that, w to the 3rd, w squared, w plus 8. So we are down to number 17. The one that matches that, it looks like A, correct? Okay. Number 18. Solve x over z equals c over a for x. So on this one, they just want x by itself. All right, they just want to figure out what x is. Well, there's only one thing that is attached to x, and it is this z right here, and it's being divided by z. So to get rid of a divided by z, we would need to multiply both sides by z, and that would cancel out, and we would get c times z over a when we multiply this stuff out. X is equal to cz over a. Number 19 also looks fairly easy. It wants us to factor, or in order to simplify this, we need to factor. There's nothing I can do on the bottom, but on the top, both of those have a 5 in it, so I can pull that 5 out. If I take a 5 out of 5a, I have a. If I take a 5 out of negative 5, I have minus 1. Those are going to cancel, and I just end up with a minus 1. That's how you do that one. That one's pretty easy compared to the other ones we've had to simplify. They want me to solve this for h squared. So right now I have p is equal to 701.7 times y over h squared. Well, I need h squared to not be on the bottom because the whole goal is to solve for h squared. So right now we're dividing by h squared, and I need that h squared to move to the top. These are going to cancel out when I do that. So I would have 701.7 times y. Okay, I'm close, but I don't have h squared equals. I have h squared times p equals. So I've got to get rid of this times p. To get rid of a times, you divide. Those are going to cancel out, and we would get h squared is equal to 701.7y divided by p. Okay. (21) Solve for x here. So we're trying to get x by itself. First thing we can do is just go to our calculator and figure out what this is. We can put these two terms together. That would be, so 3/5 plus 7 over 27. I'm getting 116 over 135. Did I type 3/5 plus 7 over? So 116 over 135. Yeah. Okay. And we've got that that is equal to x over 45. I would just cross multiply on this one would be the easiest thing to do. So we would do 45 times 116 is equal to 135 times x. 45 times 116 is 5,220. And 135 times x, we can divide by the 135. Those are going to cancel out. Okay, and I'm getting 38.6. Repeating. They're wanting you to leave your answer as it says, simplify your answer, type an integer or a fraction. They're wanting you to leave this as a fraction. In this calculator, if you hit math and you hit enter, it'll change it back to a fraction for you. So they're wanting you to leave your answer as 116 over 3. They want you, and that's important on the test. So you need to know, like, make sure you're writing down what your answer should look like, so that you don't type this in and get it wrong. It's wanting 116 over 3. I want you to type it in as a fraction and leave it. Okay, 22. In order for me to simplify this, I'm going to have to factor. Okay, this is the difference of squares because you can take, it's got a minus sign and you can take the square root of 1. It's just 1. So s minus 1 times s plus 1. Okay, and on the bottom, we're looking for something that multiplies to give us 1, but adds to give us -2. Multiplies to give us 1, but adds to give us -2. So multiplies to be 1 and adds to be -2. Okay, well, how about -1 times -1? -1 times -1 is 1, but -1 plus -1 is -2. So that means we would have an s minus 1 times s minus 1. This is going to cancel out. We're going to be left with s plus 1 over s minus 1. And that is how they want you to type your answer in for that. In class, when we had something like this, we talked about dividing this up into 3 terms and taking them one by one. So 36s over 7 over 4s to the third minus 16s to the 5th over 4s to the third plus 20s to the third over 4s to the third. Okay, then simplify them one by one. Well, 36 divided by 4 is just 9. The s to the 7 wins because it's bigger than the s to the third. So on the top, we would have our s's, and 3 of these will take away 3 of these. So I would have s to the 4th because 7 minus 3 is 4. 16 divided by 4, 4. S to the 5th over s to the 3rd. This one's bigger. So 3 of these, take away 3 of these. I still have 2 left. 20 divided by 4 is 5. S to the third over S to the third, those are exactly the same, so they cancel out. So our answer is 9S to the fourth minus 4S squared plus 5. Okay. Last two problems. They want us to solve this for y. We know that you cannot have y's on the bottom and solve. So when it's a fraction like this, one thing you can do is cross multiply. So 4y times 7 equals 5 times 3y minus 2. This side just going to be 4 times 7, which is 28y. Going to have to distribute this 5 to both things. So that's going to be 15y. 5 times negative 2 is negative 10. Okay. Getting really close. We can't have y's on both sides and solve this. So we want to move the y's to one side. I chose to subtract 15y. That's going to be 28 minus 15 is going to be 13y equals negative 10. Divide by 13. So y is negative 10 thirds. And they are okay with you just leaving your answer like that, negative 10 thirds. In order for me to simplify this, I need these z's to be off of the bottom. So what I want to do is I want to multiply everything by that denominator of z. So I'm going to say I'm multiplying this by z, and I'm multiplying this by z. So z times 1 over z plus z times 8. Now on the bottom, I would have z times 1 over z minus 4 times z, or z times 4, it doesn't matter. These are going to cancel out. I'm going to be left with 1, and then plus 8z. And then these are going to cancel out, and I'm going to be left with 1 minus 4z. And that's it. That's all that you're supposed to do on that one. That one's done. Okay, so I am going to post this review. I'm going to post a blank review. I'm going to post the worked out review, and I'm going to post the video as soon as it gets through processing on Zoom to your course content under this review.